Are you tired of not understanding what's going on in Cold War zombies in Vanguard? Well, I'm here for you. You won't leave this video with every single detail like Mr. Waffles, but hey, I'm here to just slam it in your head, oversimplify it, if you will. So make sure you just strap in and get ready, because it's gonna go fast. Quickly, before I explain the Dark Aether storyline, just summarizing it, I need to explain what happened in the other storyline, the Aether storyline. What's the Aether storyline? Basically, it's just these former events that happened that led up to the Dark Aether, and hence why we have it. The Aether storyline had many universes. I mean, there was thousands of them. In order to stop the horrible events that would happen in the Aether storyline, a long series of events had to occur in order to destroy that. Two children, Samantha Maxis and Edward Richtofen, were left at the end alone and had to go towards the only universe that could exist. Hence why we see them in the Dark Aether storyline. Eventually, we'll see the Dark Aether eventually pop up in D Machine because of a series of events, but we'll get into that a little bit later. For now, this is all you need to know about the Aether storyline. Now that we're in the Dark Aether storyline, let's fast forward to World War II. And if you know anything about World War II, the Nazis love to do horrible things, and hence why we have D Machine. D Machine was supposed to be a particle acceleration facility where Dr. Vogel, the head of the facility, and Dr. Kurtz, the assistant, really expanded upon these things, and really none of that matters because, well, we already kind of know what happens. A dimensional breach happened while they were particle accelerating because they had to leave because the Red Army was swarming in. So it was left on when the whole facility was abandoned, leaving a couple soldiers in the facility where the outbreak occurred. Hence why we have zombies. The Dark Aether has been brought into this universe. That breach has caused the Dark Aether to, say, bridge these two universes together. After the Red Army finds about all of this Nazi nonsense, they eventually clear the area, getting rid of all the bodies, and in order to seal the rift, they send in this guy.
How can I be of service, Comrade Lazarev?
There is a machine I need you to deactivate. Understood?
Duh.
Kazimir Zykov. Keep him in mind, he's going to be important for details later. Now we are no longer in World War II. We're going into the Cold War, and if you know anything about the Cold War, the US and Russians hated each other. The Soviet Union formed a KGB-operated group, the Omega Group. They would delve into the outbreak events happening out the world and try to weaponize it to use against the West. On the other hand, the US, or more importantly, the CIA, formed the Requiem Strike Team. This would be directed by the mysterious director who appointed Gregory Weaver, who is the Strike Team leader. He appoints Strike Team with the approval of the director in order to perform operations that had to do with the zombie outbreaks and rifts opening up. After being informed by Samantha Maxis, Strike Team leader of Requiem, Gregory Weaver, sends in a team directed from the director in order to seal the deal on the whole area in Poland. While in Poland, they discover what happened at the facility, Vogel and Kurtz, with Kurtz trying to explain to Vogel that the system was doing too much, but Vogel ultimately refused to stop the machine. Also, you remember that one Zykov guy? The guy I told you to remember in the beginning? Well, he appears now. Strike Team also discovered that he eventually was corrupted from the Dark Aether and turned into a megaton. We learn about his story and how he had to leave his family, which ultimately is extremely sad. But the main problem he had with himself is that he himself ultimately opened up the rift, at least again. After a series of events that occur in D Machine, the Strike Team eventually team up with Orlov in order to take down the facility. After taking out the facility, Orlov holds a nuclear bomb at the facility in order to make sure that the facility is destroyed. Strike Team then leaves the facility via helicopter and then recollects. After this, Samantha Maxis is contacted by a member of the Omega Group in Vietnam. The contact was Sergei Ravanov. Maxis informs Weaver that she is going to the base to talk with the contact. Unfortunately, her phone is tapped by Omega Group, and she eventually, going there, gets trapped by Dr. Peck. Dr. Peck questions and interrogates her, trying to find out the mole in the Omega Group, and unfortunately for him, she just won't crack. So after a short amount of time, he just threw her into the Dark Aether. The contact, Sergei, finds out and calls Weaver and informs him that she has been trapped in the Dark Aether in Vietnam. After this, Weaver sends the Strike Team to Fire Base C, located in Vietnam, to get back Maxis. In order to get back Maxis, they have to talk to Peck. Strike Team has to eventually carry out tasks for him, including turning on the power, and in return, they would get Maxis. Unfortunately, Peck goes back on his word, so Strike Team then has to force it out of him. Through many events in Firebase C, the Strike Team fails eventually to get the information out of Peck, but the upper HQ of Requiem sends in one of their elaborate devices in order to free out Maxis and clear her out of the dark ether. Now, with their objective done, Strike Team then tries to go exfil, with Orda, the Elder God, coming back for revenge. They defeat him, then successfully exfil with Maxis, Sergi staying back and informing Maxis that there are events happening in the Ural Mountains. This leads up into the Outbreak Easter eggs. After the events of Firebase Z, Samantha Maxis is held by Requiem. This did not stop her though. In the events of Outbreak, when Strike Team is trying to gather Ethereum for the Ethereal Arm Race, because, well, in the Cold War in the Zombies universe, there's an Ethereal Arm Race, the race in order to advance the farthest in Ethereum research. She communicates to Strike Team to help find and locate Sergi in order to stop the plan of Omega. Omega had created a warhead that had Ethereum and Tempest on it. This would be used to change the course of the Cold War, ultimately resulting in a Soviet Union win. The Soviet Union would have won the Cold War, hence why Maxis wanted to destroy it, or at least get rid of it. After finding Sergi, Strike Team now then prepares to launch the missile into the Pacific Ocean in order for the Soviet Union to not be able to use the warhead. Trying to attempt this, a Tempest boss spawns at the launch site. Eventually, Strike Team defeats the giant Tempest and the warhead is launched into the ocean. After these events, Weaver was contacted by Ravenov, informing Weaver that a group of Omega scientists wanted to join Requiem because of Omega. With this information, Weaver then sends Strike Team to the sanatorium in the Outbreak region. When arriving, they discover that all of the Omega scientists were put on display and killed. It turns out that Omega scientist Jaeger was trying to find out any moles within Omega Group, killing them off and trapping Strike Team Requiem. After this trap, Kravchenko then goes in, swoops up Strike Team, and captures them as prisoners / collateral. This then sets up the events for Mauerder Toten. Alexandria Valentina Vogel was a Omega scientist, and that might sound familiar because Vogel was the scientist from D Machine. You remember that guy? With the events and outbreaks happening throughout the world, Valentina seen this as an opportunity to avenge or continue her father's legacy. After the events of Firebase C, Valentina then goes to a facility in Berlin, hence why we are Mauerder Toten. An entity in the dark ether claims to be Valentina's father, so she does as the voice commands. She creates a portal for the dark ether entity, or her father, and an army to come through and eventually take over and establish the final Reich. Kravchenko then discovers that there's an outbreak in Berlin. He then assigns Strike Team, because they are collateral now, to go and solve and find Valentina. If Strike Team fails, Raptor 1 will be executed. Following Omega's orders and being told advice, Strike Team then eventually finds Valentina and tries to shut off the portal. With the help with a Requiem robot, Klaus, who is established on the site for some reason, they then defeat Valentina, then set a nuclear warhead off in the dark ether, destroying the dark ether portal and saving the world for now. After these events, Ravenov then calls Weaver and informs that the Soviet Union, specifically Peck and Kravchenko, were using a facility in order to summon Zykov and also the Forsaken. Requiem used Samantha Maxis and her new trained powers in order to infiltrate inside the base and stop Omega Group. Requiem then sneaks in the facility and then ultimately is too slow to stop Omega Group from summoning Zykov. When Omega Group is summoning Zykov, they are tricked. Honestly, they're bamboozled. They accidentally summon the Forsaken. See, the Forsaken merged with Zykov. If you think about it, Zykov is the ultimate Forsaken. After completing many tasks in order to get towards the Forsaken, Requiem Team now swoops in and fights the Forsaken with Samantha Maxis. Using ether turrets, they eventually stop the Forsaken, shooting him and bursting his head. When bursting his head, these ether crystals from the dark ether are spilled out everywhere, and, well, humanity's kind of screwed at this point. Samantha Maxis, at a last attempt, finally swarms in and just merges into the dark ether, sending the Forsaken and also her deep into the dark ether. Sure, this meant a win for Requiem, but now Maxis and the Forsaken were both stuck in the dark ether together in a small containment area that was located besides the ether turrets. After this, the storage unit and also Requiem Team was exfilled. Now here's where things get tricky, okay? Everyone in the Requiem lead department is arrested alongside with Strike Team. Why? You see, the director, he has this Project Janus thing, okay? It's this just elaborate plan, and basically Strike Team and the leads, they completed it for him. With the storage unit now in his possession, he basically owns the Forsaken and Maxis. He couldn't risk any normal civilian, aka Strike Team and also the leads, to use this information against him, hence why he arrests them. Now the real question, why want the Forsaken? Why want Maxis? Why would the director want any of this? If any of you know anything about the Aether storyline, you would know that the director, when revealed, was Edward Richtofen. In all universes, Richtofen is a crazy German scientist who wants to conduct evil experiments and control the world ultimately, and all humans, every being, everything. Hence why he wanted the Forsaken and its dark ether powers, and Maxis because she was well trained with her ethereal powers as well. Now for the ending of Cold War Zombies, we have Peck, who goes to a fisherman in a village in order to go towards these weird coordinates in the ocean. If you remember anything about the Outbreak Easter egg, Requiem sent the missile warhead into that specific spot in the ocean. Everything after this we have no clue about. Now that we've oversimplified the Cold War zombie story, how does this tie to Vanguard zombies? Wolfram von List, a senior general within the German army, he was tasked to discovering about the occult. What's the occult? Basically, it's a part of the dark ether that has to do with artifacts. Gabriel Kraft, the historian, was forced under German rule to help with the cause. His job was to find these mythical artifacts, but you see here the artifacts are dormant. When found, really, they can't be used. But with the events in Cold War Zombies, aka at End Station, they are now activated once touched. The whole plan with the general was to just eventually raise an army with the dead, which he does with Cortifex touching his artifact. This would allow him to continue throughout the war and use German dead soldiers and turn them to actual soldiers. Now you have to remember this is all before Cold War Zombies, so something along these lines must have failed. The Russians haven't swept in yet, nothing like that has happened at Project End Station. Cortifex uses his ethereal powers to trap the group sent to Duran Feng. Now these are elder gods, so keep this in mind, they are extremely powerful, and we'll eventually see what happens after Duran Feng and to see if they have any crazy plans in the near distant future.